The more Elizabeth thought about it, the more she thought her idea was perfect. With Chloe's current mental state, she could pretend to be crazy. If it were determined Chloe was not of sound mind when she arranged for the fake will, then they could implicate Chloe, and she wouldn't have to go to jail. She glanced over at Miranda, who was still trying to console Chloe. As soon as Elizabeth could get her mother alone, she would fill her in. Elizabeth had a feeling that Miranda would finally agree to let her sister be their scapegoat if she knew Chloe could do her time in a mental facility versus a jail cell. Once Elizabeth talked to Miranda, the only thing left to do would be to tell Chloe. Elizabeth was confident that if she told her sister that her position in the Kingston family wouldn't change and that her temporary sacrifice would ensure Lionel's place in the Kingston group, she would agree to take the fall. And if her sister didn't agree, well, Elizabeth figured they could still blame her and claim Chloe was delusional if she denied any knowledge. It seemed like a win-win plan to Elizabeth. Garrett had been monitoring Violet's court case closely since it began. He often met with Lionel to discuss their plan, so he took the opportunity to probe Lionel for insider information about the trial. Garrett's spies had already informed him of the results of the forensic analysis of the wills. Garrett knew that Miranda and Charles had gotten themselves into real trouble this time. Is it time to wrap up our plan? Now that Miranda had helped elevate Lionel to the position of deputy director, he wanted to take over the Kingston group as soon as possible. With the lawsuit wrapping up soon, Lionel was hoping that he could be by Violet's side. He was anxious to put Garrett's plan into action. It's almost time. We need to wait a few more days while the case of the Kingston family is decided. Garrett was as anxious as Lionel to implement their plan, but he knew they had to be cautious. The plan involved a lot of people, and they couldn't afford to fail by rushing it. Lionel shook his head, annoyed. How could they be so stupid? This is so annoying. Creating a farce of a false will? Really? I don't know what they were thinking. They? Garrett asked. Who are you talking about? Garrett felt that Lionel definitely knew more than he had told him. He wanted to see if it had anything to do with Violet. By the way, you like Elizabeth, right? Do you want to help her? Lionel cocked an eyebrow as he looked at Garrett expectantly. What do you mean? Garrett glanced at him. What I mean is that ultimately Charles always listens to Miranda. He's always been that way, and he hasn't suddenly decided to man up. Charles doesn't have the guts to fake a will. He probably didn't know about it, and wouldn't have participated if he had known. It must have been Elizabeth and her mother who did this. Charles has been focusing all his attention on his pregnant mistress. How could he have the energy to care about this? Besides, Garrett cut him off. Then you want me to help Elizabeth? But how can you be certain that she had something to do with the forged will? Garrett wasn't saying no to helping her, but he would need Lionel to explain how helping Elizabeth would benefit Garrett first. It had to be Miranda and Elizabeth, Lionel stated emphatically. Charles doesn't have it in him, and Chloe has been in a hospital all this time. Under my surveillance, Chloe hasn't had the opportunity to do anything. But I'm under no obligation to help Elizabeth, Garrett told him. I thought that you liked Elizabeth. You two seem to be spending a lot of time together. I thought you two had grown close. Don't all of you rich people want to marry big stars? Lionel asked. Garrett smirked. What? Can't a man just appreciate a beautiful woman? But even if I had such thoughts, Elizabeth doesn't want me. She likes my big brother. But I think you are more suitable for her. After their plan succeeded, Logan would be penniless. Lionel felt that Elizabeth didn't need to throw herself at Logan anymore. Besides, Elizabeth is different from Anna. There is no hostility between the Kingston and the Gardner families to stand in your way." Lionel looked at Garrett and sneered internally. If Garrett could take Elizabeth away, there would be no resistance between him and Violet. Did Garrett think Lionel didn't know that he had feelings for Violet? Whether Garrett's feelings for her were genuine or a way to provoke Logan, Lionel didn't know. He just knew he wanted to cut off Garrett's thoughts about Violet completely. "Why are you so concerned about Elizabeth all of a sudden?" Garrett looked at Lionel suspiciously. "Don't tell me you are having thoughts about her yourself." "What are you talking about? I'm engaged to her sister. I am part of the Kingston family now. I have to help them think of a way out of the mess they've created." "How about you offer Elizabeth some advice? She is an intelligent person. She will listen to you," Lionel told him. Garrett nodded noncommittally. After all, Elizabeth was just a woman, and it didn't matter if there was one more or one less. It wouldn't affect him much. Who Garrett ultimately desired was the woman his brother wanted the most. However, with Joanna's interference, he didn't know if Logan would change his mind. "Your mother seems to like Elizabeth very much. She hopes that Elizabeth can be with Logan." Lionel was having similar thoughts. "If Violet leaves Logan because of Elizabeth, we should consider it Elizabeth's significant contribution to our success." Garrett looked at Lionel knowingly. "I would be happy to see that happen." Of course, Lionel wanted Logan and Violet to separate. It would be best if they became enemies and never interacted. Of course, Lionel wanted Logan and Violet to separate. It would be best if they became enemies and never interacted. Then, Lionel would only have one more obstacle to pursuing Violet's heart. "I heard that Noah is still investigating the marriage partner Kenneth arranged for Violet." This was what Lionel was concerned about. "Oh, what have you heard?" Garrett was also quite interested. "It seems like the man was kidnapped when he was young. There's a high probability that he's from a prominent Los Angeles family. Hopefully Noah never finds him. Or if he does, he's already married. Or dead." Lionel hated the idea of some unknown man swooping in at the 11th hour and stealing Violet from him. Garrett felt the shiver of recognition go through him. Kidnapping? No, it couldn't be. Garrett narrowed his eyes and looked at Lionel, but remained outwardly calm. No one would know by looking at him how much Lionel's words had affected Garrett, and the suspicions now going through his mind. When Garrett returned home that night, his Grandma Sarah was in the living room waiting up for him. It was quite late. The old woman must have felt she had something important to tell him if she'd waited up. Unfortunately, Garrett already knew what his grandmother was going to say, and was sick of hearing it. It was nothing more than telling him not to forget his father's grudge, the grudge of the Gardner family. "Where's Anna? Why is she not with you? Didn't you take her out tonight?" His grandma looked behind Garrett as he walked into the room, and immediately became agitated when she didn't see Anna with him. "If you don't spend time with her, how can you take revenge on the Alexander family?" "I had other things to do today and didn't meet up with her. Grandma, I feel that we can take revenge ourselves. We don't need to make Anna our scapegoat." "No! The Alexander family destroyed your father. We also want to destroy their daughter. Anna is a gift from the heavens. Why don't you want to take advantage of her? Have you forgotten the humiliation the Alexander family has inflicted on our Gardner family?" His grandma was growing angry. "Grandma, you waited up just to repeat all this? Don't you think I already know how you feel?" Garrett felt a headache coming on. He was growing impatient with his grandmother. He had no desire to get involved with Anna. but his grandma wasn't giving up. If Grandma Sarah had her way, he would already be ring shopping and be stuck with Anna for the rest of his life. It was so annoying. Anna's beauty and charm were no match for Violet's, and her social interactions were not as charming as Elizabeth's. He could get revenge without shackling himself to Anna. Why couldn't his grandmother let this go? Garrett felt strange. He could get revenge on the Alexander family without shackling himself to Anna. Why couldn't his grandmother let this idea go? Garrett found Anna annoying, but why does his grandmother feel the need to destroy the girl completely? Did his mother have something to do with Grandma Sarah's determination? Did Grandma think she was helping Joanna destroy Fiona's daughter in retaliation for having cheated with her husband? Garrett wouldn't put it past her. He smiled bitterly and pinched the space between his eyebrows. It didn't really matter what his grandmother's reasoning was. Garrett knew he'd do as she asked. He always did. He nodded tiredly, indicating that he would do what his grandmother wanted. He called for a servant to help his grandmother to her bedroom. Then Garrett poured himself a drink and leaned on the sofa. He stared blankly for a long time before he stood and shrugged. Garrett threw back the rest of his drink in one swallow and set down his glass with a resigned thud. Anna was just a woman, and he knew it would take little effort on his part to make Anna his. If destroying her would make Logan furious and make the rest of the Alexander family lose face, then Garrett would do it. Violet's face went through Garrett's mind. He knew she must be exhausted from dealing with her lawsuit. Plus, Logan's company was such a mess. His brother probably wasn't paying Violet any attention. Garrett decided that, as a friend, he should offer Violet some comfort and stay by Violet's side in her time of need. He decided to go to Jay's studio tomorrow and take Violet to dinner. Then, thinking of his recent commitment to his grandmother, he sent a quick text to Anna, asking her to have lunch with him tomorrow. Garrett would have lunch with the woman he was supposed to be pursuing, and dinner with the woman he really wanted. It was Friday, and Adam and Amy had arrived that afternoon to spend the weekend at Logan's home. Zoe and Lee were busy making a delicious dinner for the twins to make them happy. The lawn at Logan's house was huge. Adam and Amy had brought Kit and Kat with them, and they were running and rolling around on the grass with the puppies. Violet could hear the children's laughter through the open windows upstairs and felt the happiest she had been for a long time. Noah had assured her that the lawsuit was going well, and George would be well enough to visit again in a few days. Life had been too full of worries and challenges to allow Violet to feel truly happy for a very long time. Although challenges still lay in front of her, hearing the happy laughter of her children, who were safe and content, was enough to make Violet happy and grateful. "I'm not going to make it home tonight to eat with you and the children, so go ahead and have dinner without me," Logan told her. While Violet had grown used to it by now, she had been surprised the first time Logan had called to let her know his evening plans. Violet hadn't thought he owed her an explanation, and was surprised, given their arrangement, that he'd been considerate enough to inform her. When Violet had told him this, Logan had replied, in his typically terse fashion, "I'm Adam and Amy's father, and your man. If I'm not going to make it home for dinner, it's common courtesy to call and tell you." At his explanation, Violet had decided just to accept the gesture and not point out that it was actually extremely uncommon for Logan to be courteous or considerate of anyone. "You've worked late every night this week. Is everything okay at the company?" Violet fiddled with the dahlias by the window, her favorite flower. Every day, a fresh bouquet arrived. Logan had a standing order at the flower shop. He'd never said anything, but she knew Logan must have asked the twins what kind of flowers were Violet's favorite. Touching the soft petals, she was struck again at how considerate Logan could be. "The company's business has nothing to do with you. I have to go." Then Logan hung up. Violet sighed and slipped her phone back into her pocket. She watched the children playing with Kit and Kat outside a while longer. Violet smiled and waved through the open window at Adam and Amy when they happened to look up. She had a feeling that something had happened at the Smith group. Every time she'd seen Corey the past few days, he'd looked tense, and Drake and Priya had seemed similarly anxious. Of course, when Violet had asked, all three of them had put on false smiles and denied anything was wrong. Violet knew her friends were lying, especially Priya. She spent every day with Violet at the studio and was usually energetic and feisty. If Priya saw Garrett approach Violet, she acted like a cat with its fur standing on end, ready to swipe and hiss at an intruder. But for the past few days, Priya had barely seemed to notice Garrett's studio visits. Something wasn't right. Violet trusted her instincts. Something must have happened at the Smith group. She had to think of a way to get Logan to tell her what was going on. If something had happened at the company, Logan would have likely ordered all of his subordinates not to tell Violet anything. If she was going to find out what had happened, Violet was going to have to go straight to Logan. Of course, she'd have to be sneaky about it. When she'd asked him directly just now, he'd told her to mind her own business and hung up. Violet rolled her eyes and glanced at the dahlias. How could this man be so considerate and so rude, all at the same time? It was past midnight when Logan finally returned home. He was surprised when he walked in the front door to see Violet in the living room. Usually when he returned home this late, Violet was already in bed, asleep. Not that Logan minded. He figured she needed the rest, since he rarely let her sleep through the night. He enjoyed thinking of creative new ways to wake her and keep her up. He knew Violet sensed something was going on at Smith Group. Thinking about what had happened today, Logan felt like it had been a painful dream. Had Violet waited up to check on him? Logan couldn't deny the thought made him grateful, but he would not think Violet had done so out of love. When Logan thought of the word love, he internally shivered. He felt that, although Violet was gentle and accommodating, she was definitely not a woman who would easily say this word to anyone. And Logan was the same. He always felt that the word love was very unreliable. Logan was a man of action, not words. He believed the best way for two people to get along was to be loyal and faithful, no matter the situation. This was why he'd never felt that his mother had really loved his father, or even Jackson. She could not love either man, because she only loved herself. Logan set his briefcase down on the bench by the door, his cold face revealing none of his internal thoughts. Zoe and Lee had long gone to bed, so it was just him and Violet. She approached him to help him with his coat, but Logan didn't let her. This was his woman, not his nanny. He was not the kind of man who would make a woman grovel before him. "I'll do it myself." He stopped Violet's actions, but Logan's tone was gentle. Violet was stunned for a moment and smiled at him before taking a step back. He looked at Violet seriously and felt something was different about her today. "Did you wait up for me? Is something the matter?" Logan frowned and rubbed his temples as he spoke. He was exhausted. The Smith Group situation was complicated, and Logan had been working day and night. He and Corey had many plans they needed to deploy and execute carefully. Not to mention, Logan still hadn't figured out how to explain what was happening to his grandmother in a way she would accept. Grandmother was no longer a young woman, and Logan didn't want her to become overwrought at the news. Plus, Logan had been carefully monitoring the situation with Violet's lawsuit. As their father, Logan was willing to be tired to ensure that Adam and Amy's long-term interests were protected. If it were half a year ago, he would never have imagined that he would be like this, sincerely planning and caring for his family. No, nothing is the matter. I just wanted... Well, I was thinking Violet stammered, then her words trailed off, making Logan more suspicious. What were you thinking about? Logan gazed at her, and Violet felt a bit intoxicated as she returned his stare. But Violet didn't answer his question. How could she say aloud that what she had been thinking about was him? Violet blushed as she looked into Logan's eyes. It was well past midnight, and Logan had just returned from work. Violet could tell something had happened at the Smith group, but she didn't know what. She had waited up to check on Logan, but became tongue-tied when he'd asked her why she was still awake. Violet was too shy to tell Logan she was worried about him. Finally, Violet managed to get out, "Well, you've been working so late all week. I haven't seen you much. I thought we could have a glass of wine together. It might help you relax and sleep better." Logan's expression changed a little when Violet mentioned drinking wine. Not because of anything Violet said. He thought she was being sweet. Instead, it was because she had inadvertently reminded Logan of the night of the gala. He drank wine that night and was tricked into a hotel room with Elizabeth. Logan still didn't know exactly what had happened that evening. "I'd like that," Logan told her. Since Violet was being thoughtful, he didn't want to disappoint her. "Were the children good today?" he asked as they moved towards the stairs. "Of course. You know how they are. As long as the two of them are together, they're fine," Violet smiled. "Good. I'll go take a bath first." Logan's mouth curled up, and he gave her a gentle smile. It was a smile only Violet got to see. Okay. Violet was happy. Logan had promised her that they could have a drink together. She was in a good mood. Violet took a few steps toward the stairs before looking flirtatiously at Logan over her shoulder. "Don't worry. I will go easy on you tonight." Logan snorted and chuckled softly. Violet was looking for trouble. She was doing her best to get Logan to relax, and it was quite cute. He followed her up the stairs. Violet flitted up the stairs with light steps and hummed an unknown tune as she went. When she reached the top, she turned around to look at him. She looked beautiful, and her eyes were sparkling. Logan lunged to grab her, but Violet nimbly escaped. She laughed at him as she ran towards their bedroom. Logan took the stairs 2 at a time and chased after her. Violet ran through their bedroom straight into the bathroom, laughing as she closed the door on him. He could hear her still laughing as she started the bath water. Violet probably thought her little game was very entertaining. She forgot she was dealing with Logan. Violet would pay the price later for teasing him. He hoped Violet could bear it. Logan laughed softly in anticipation as he walked into the closet to change into his robe. When he opened the dresser drawer to put his cufflinks away, Logan saw the little hair clip. The pink stones were shining under the warm light. He picked it up and rubbed his finger gently along it. He felt the familiar melancholy that always came over him when he thought about that day, so many years ago, when he'd seen the little girl. Logan's memories of his kidnapping were very fuzzy. He remembered that he'd been in and out of consciousness. He couldn't remember where he'd been held captive, except that the floor had been hard and cold. Had he been held in a room or a cave? Logan didn't know. He remembered hearing a few people come in and a frightened cry of a little girl. It was probably his appearance that scared her. Was he tied up at that time? Logan couldn't remember. He shook his head hard. Why could Logan never remember? Could his memory be damaged? Or maybe his subconscious had blocked out his trauma and refused to let him remember more. His kidnapping should have been the most unforgettable event of Logan's childhood. Yet his memories of the experience were like those of a fuzzy, half-remembered dream. His grandmother had told him more than once she thought that Logan's little girl was a dream. She believed his imagination had conjured up the girl as a coping mechanism, a way for him to comfort himself during his ordeal. His grandmother and Logan had both conducted extensive investigations over the years to find evidence of the little girl, and both had found nothing. Logan decided he needed to have his investigators look again, maybe have them investigate the doctor. Since Logan had become involved with Violet, he felt the need to look for the girl again. He wanted to find her and see who she was. Logan wanted to know how she was now and what kind of life she was living. Was she living well? Did she have a good life, a family, a husband? Once Logan knew these answers, then he could move forward with the decision he wanted to make. Hey, where'd you go? The water is going to get cold. Logan, are you here? Violet came out and couldn't find Logan. She looked around the bedroom, puzzled. Logan took a deep breath and adjusted his expression. He hid all his melancholy thoughts away in his mind. Then he opened the door and came out, tying his robe around his waist as he went. What, am I supposed to wear my suit into the bathtub? Where did you think I went? Logan rolled his eyes as he brushed past Violet on the way to the bathroom. You just want to bicker with me because you would feel uncomfortable if you went a day without arguing with me. Violet smirked at him. Logan ignored her comment and went in to take a bath. If it had been another night, Logan definitely would have asked Violet to join him. And if she'd refused, he would have ordered her, using their contract as an excuse. He would normally never pass up a chance to take advantage of a naked Violet. She would get angry and glare at him, but her eyes would still heat in anticipation. Logan sighed. Tempting, but for once, he was too worn out. Seeing that Logan seemed tired and preoccupied, Violet decided to leave him be. She thought he might want some time to be alone with his thoughts. She felt more and more certain that the Smith group was in some kind of trouble. Violet really wanted to know what was going on. After all, she used to be a part of the company. Maybe she could help somehow. As she was thinking about how to bring the topic up with Logan when they had their wine, Violet's phone buzzed on the end of the table with an incoming text. Walking over to it, she realized it wasn't her phone, but Logan's. Logan had given her a phone that was the same brand and model as his, but the color was different. Who was texting Logan so late? Mike? Corey? Thinking about it, Mike and Corey usually called if it was important. And it was 1 a.m. Wasn't anything that needed to be discussed in the middle of the night usually important? So then, who would be texting Logan? Violet looked at the bathroom door, which was ajar. Logan had just gone in, so he would not come out for a while. Maybe she could discover some clues of what was going on with the Smith group. Curious, Violet quietly picked up Logan's phone and moved to the other side of the door, where she couldn't be seen. Fortunately, there was no password. Violet opened it. and saw that the message was from an unknown number. Logan, Joanna said I was drunk and sad at the bar the other night. She asked you to come and pick me up, but you didn't come to get me. Do you hate me that much? Yesterday, I was not feeling well. I went to the doctor for a checkup. The doctor said that I was pregnant. Logan, now will you come and see me? E. Violet suddenly felt hot all over. Her ears began ringing loudly. She reached out blindly to the wall to support herself. She thought she was going to be sick. The text was from Elizabeth. Did this mean that Logan was still seeing her? Logan had promised Violet that he would not be with anyone else during their agreement. Otherwise, no matter what Logan had said or done to force or entice her, Violet would never have agreed to move in with him. But then, why would Elizabeth text Logan to tell him she was pregnant? Violet knew there was only one logical explanation. He had betrayed Violet. Logan was the father of Elizabeth's baby. Violet was reeling. The doctor said that I was pregnant. That's what Elizabeth's late-night text to Logan had said. Violet knew there was only one logical reason why Elizabeth would message Logan to tell him she was pregnant. Elizabeth believed Logan was the father of her baby. Logan had betrayed Violet. Violet's shock was quickly turning into anger. Logan had broken their agreement. Violet had so many questions running through her head. Why would Elizabeth think Logan was the father of her baby if they weren't sleeping together? This had to mean Elizabeth and Logan had been intimate recently. Why had he broken their agreement? And if Logan was having an affair with Elizabeth, when had it started? Had he been lying to Violet all this time, and he'd never actually cut ties with Elizabeth? Logan always insisted that nothing had ever happened between the two of them during their 4 years together. Was that another lie? If Elizabeth and Logan were having an affair, Violet must immediately move out of Logan's home. Violet needed Logan to tell her the truth, and she needed answers from him. She rushed into the bathroom to confront Logan, but stopped in her tracks when she saw him. The scene in front of her didn't make Violet angry. It made her feel a rush of affection. Logan had fallen asleep in the bathtub. His head was resting against the back of the tub. His eyes were closed, and his long eyelashes cast a beautiful shadow under his eyelids. The curve of his neck and jaw no longer looked so cold and hard, and Violet actually saw a bit of softness in his features for once. A drop of water ran down his forehead, dripping off the tip of his nose to the corner of his mouth. A moment ago, Violet had wanted to slap the man, but now she found herself wanting to wipe away the drop, gently. He'd fallen asleep so fast. Logan must be exhausted from all his long days at work, trying to fix whatever had happened at the Smith Group. Violet quietly sat down on the side of the tub, dipping her hand into the water to test the temperature. The water was still quite hot. Violet temporarily put Elizabeth's information and Logan's possible betrayal to the back of her mind and stirred the bathtub with her hand. After a while, Logan snorted lightly and lifted his head. I fell asleep. Logan pressed his temple and blinked to focus his eyes on Violet. He didn't look like a tyrannical CEO. He looked like her tired lover. Logan lazily leaned his head back against the bathtub and smiled at Violet. Yes, you fell asleep. You could have drowned, you know, Violet reproached him. You were worried about me? Logan asked her. Deciding it was time to get out, he stretched his body in the water and stood up. Eek! Violet shrieked. She jumped up and quickly turned around. Why are you screeching? You scared me. Logan scolded. Can you cover yourself? Violet's face was red as she stammered. You have no clothes on. Logan rolled his eyes at her. This is my home, my bathroom. You are my woman. Why do I need to cover myself? I shouldn't need to hide from you. Violet didn't know how to respond since Logan was right. She decided not to argue with him. It was more important that she talk to him about Elizabeth's text. I'm going into the bedroom to wait for you. Get dressed and come out. I need to talk to you about something. I thought you wanted to have a drink together. Logan took a towel and began drying his body. Violet's back still faced him. It seemed she didn't dare turn around. Logan frowned. I don't know why you're acting so shy. Which part of me have you never seen before? Which part of you have I never seen before? Ah, horrible man. Embarrassed and flustered, Violet rushed out of the bathroom. Now was not the time. She needed Logan to be serious and tell her what was going on with Elizabeth. Violet stomped over to the sofa and sat down. She was ready to let Logan have it when he came out. However, when Logan walked out wearing just his bathrobe, Violet once again found herself distracted by him. Why did Logan have to be so gorgeous? His dark hair was still wet, and a lock had fallen across his forehead. Violet stared at him. Logan looked sexy and decadent, and suddenly she found the room quite warm. For a moment, she forgot why she was furious with him. Seeing Violet staring at him with obvious lust in her eyes, Logan felt his own desire immediately take hold. He threw away the towel he'd been using to dry his hair and went to her. Violet only snapped out of her daze when he fiercely kissed her. No, wait! Violet hurriedly pushed Logan away and looked at him unhappily. What are you doing? Kissing you. You look at me like that, and I thought it was a warm invitation. Logan answered matter-of-factly, but with a frown. He was very dissatisfied that Violet had interrupted his kiss. What had gotten into her? Where was the flirtatious woman who had greeted him when he came home? No kissing. Violet tried very hard to calm herself down. That's not what your eyes are telling me. And your body. Logan ran his hand slowly down Violet's arm, his touch leaving goosebumps in its wake. Violet felt her breathing quicken and suppressed her shiver. If Violet let Logan take this any further, she knew she'd soon be in his bed and wouldn't get the answer she needed. I will not let myself be distracted by him, Violet told herself. No, we need to talk, she told him. Now? Logan looked at her in disbelief. Can't whatever it is wait until after? He leaned in as if to kiss her again, and Violet quickly grabbed Logan's phone off the table and held it out in front of her to ward him off. Do you want to explain this to me? She asked him, her voice shaking. Logan saw Violet's serious expression and heard the tremor in her voice. Suspiciously, he took the phone from her. Logan saw that it was actually his phone, and on the screen was a message to him from Elizabeth. After reading Elizabeth's text, Logan's reaction wasn't anger or shock. It was a relief. He had been worried about Elizabeth's intentions for weeks, and now Logan finally understood why she had tricked him. He hadn't been able to figure out why Elizabeth had not approached him about the incident at the hotel. Had she maintained her silence with him because she was biding her time? The woman was definitely not as innocent as she always portrayed herself to be. Logan's anger and disgust had been simmering for weeks. Now that he could see what game Elizabeth was playing, Logan could calm down and take action. Of course, he would first have to determine whether Elizabeth's so-called pregnancy was real or fake. Logan looked at Violet with a bit of disappointment. You believe her? He reached up and gently stroked her cheek before he wrapped a lock of her long black hair around his fingertip and played with it. We've been in an intimate relationship for months, and yet you trust Elizabeth more than you trust me. Is that it? Logan asked. Was that a trace of hurt on Logan's face? Violet wondered. She sighed in frustration. That's not what I meant. Logan was the father of her children and had always protected them. Of course she trusted him more than Elizabeth. Still, Violet was unhappy. It's just, why would Elizabeth say she's pregnant when a simple paternity test could prove it was a lie? She asked. And why would Elizabeth think you'd even believe her, unless the two of you have been sleeping together? Violet took a deep breath before continuing. Did you break our agreement, Logan? Have you been cheating on me with Elizabeth? Violet waited anxiously for Logan to reply. Elizabeth had texted him, claiming she was pregnant with his child, and now Violet needed to know the truth. Even if she was lying about being pregnant, Elizabeth believed Logan would think she could be. Wasn't that evidence they'd recently slept together? Violet needed answers. Did you break our agreement, Logan? Have you been cheating on me with Elizabeth? Logan watched Violet closely from his position next to her on the couch. He was a bit disappointed she didn't trust him. He pushed a lock of Violet's hair behind her ear. You say you trust me, yet you still ask me these questions. You don't have to worry about this information. I'll take care of it. You're going to have to trust me, Violet. Violet was exasperated. I want to trust you, Logan. But why would Elizabeth think you'd believe her if you weren't having an affair? Logan looked at her sternly, growing irritated. I told you before you signed our contract that Elizabeth and I have never been intimate. Our relationship has always been platonic, despite public speculation. She means nothing to me. Violet's face flushed with anger. She obviously meant something to you. You let her hang around you for 4 years, Logan. You helped her family through the Smith Group's financial backing. You bought Elizabeth's career so she could become a big star. You paid for her house. You gave her an allowance and spent millions of dollars on expensive gifts. Yet I'm supposed to believe Elizabeth meant nothing to you? That after 4 years, you could cut ties so easily? Violet didn't think she was being unreasonable. She was basing her thoughts on evidence. After all, when she returned to Los Angeles to prepare for revenge, Haley warned her that the task in front of her could be impossible because of Logan's ties with the Kingston family. Violet had trusted Logan. How could she have been so naive? Logan was growing equally angry. Those tens of millions of gifts? Weren't you the one who helped to pick them out? He spat. When Violet had just begun working as his secretary, he'd given her all the most difficult and unpleasant tasks. Logan hadn't asked her to buy such an expensive present for Elizabeth. Violet had done that, on her own. So what if I chose it? Didn't you order me to pick something out for her? You even asked me to deliver it to Elizabeth personally. Did you know she wanted me to leave the Smith Group after that? Violet didn't feel like she'd done anything wrong. Then Elizabeth has good taste. Logan smiled and said, What are you talking about? He was thick-skinned and still had the nerve to smile. Violet wanted to smack the smile off Logan's face, but she was also curious. She didn't understand what he meant. Elizabeth knew from the moment she saw you that I would like you. Doesn't that mean she has good taste? She obviously knew what I wanted, and also had a clear understanding of your charms. Logan raised the corner of his mouth and smiled at her provocatively. It was as if being chosen by him was a blissful and glorious thing. Logan! Violet huffed. He shrugged. Just think of the gifts as consolation prizes. A way for Elizabeth to save face when I announced that we were just friends. But she lied to you. Elizabeth pretended to be me for 4 years. How can you have any sympathy for her? Violet was infuriated. It turned out that Elizabeth's acting skills in her personal life were much better than her acting skills in her dramas. It was not Elizabeth's intention to lie to me. Her family put her up to it. All right, let's not talk about her anymore. I've already publicly and privately announced that Elizabeth and I are just friends, which should be enough for you. Logan felt that Violet was being unreasonable. Why did she not believe him? And Logan wasn't giving Elizabeth a free pass on this either. He would find out Elizabeth's ultimate goal. Logan had given her the benefit of the doubt up until now. If Elizabeth now tried to take something from him that didn't belong to her, his last bit of sympathy for the woman would disappear completely. Violet shook her head. How can you expect me to believe that you and Elizabeth are just friends? You keep asking the same question, and I want to know why. Logan was frustrated Violet wasn't letting this go. He felt he had already explained himself. Although he had never touched Elizabeth, he knew what their relationship had looked like to outsiders. He and Elizabeth had been photographed together from time to time. It would have been impossible to stop public speculation of a romance between them. Everyone in Los Angeles probably thought he had an affair with Elizabeth. But Logan had told Violet nothing had happened. Yet she kept asking him, indicating the message on the phone with her hand. Or perhaps this is a recent development. You were originally just friends, but now you are not. Violet asked Logan, her heart in her throat. Logan hesitated for a moment. He didn't know if he had been intimate with Elizabeth that night at the hotel. But if he had been, it was not of his own volition. If Elizabeth insisted that she was pregnant with his child, Logan could take advantage of the situation, and perhaps it would help his and Corey's plan. In any case, Logan had repeatedly denied there was anything between him and Elizabeth, and Violet still didn't trust him. Violet wouldn't believe him at this point without an admission from Elizabeth herself or a paternity test. But it was still uncertain whether Elizabeth was even pregnant or not. Perhaps his mother or Miranda gave Elizabeth some horrible idea. Not letting go was so annoying. Anyway, what he had done that night was wrong. He should not have drunk that day and should not have believed Elizabeth's nonsense. But if Logan took advantage of the situation to further his plans, would he hurt Violet? Should he tell her what had happened, try to explain, or take advantage of this opportunity? After all, he had never cared so much about a woman before. You know what I'm talking about. Violet looked at Logan bravely. If she's pregnant, it would be a recent development. A development that took place since we had our agreement. You didn't forget about it, did you? Are you talking about our agreement? Logan slowly stood up and picked up the towel on the sofa again to slowly wipe his hair. The clause says that if I am disloyal to our contract, you can terminate it directly. So, are you going to terminate it now? I didn't say that, but you violated the agreement, Violet stammered. What he had just said, his sentence was the equivalent of Logan indirectly admitting that there was no longer any connection between him and Elizabeth, but that there had been. Her hurt made Violet grow even angrier. Violet's pretty face flushed red. She was angry and humiliated. She no longer cared about Logan's work situation or her physical attraction to him. Violet angrily clenched her fists and hissed at Logan. You are shameless. Logan felt conflicted. He didn't want to upset Violet. He also felt uncomfortable when he saw the hurt in Violet's eyes. But the problem in front of him had to be solved. He didn't know what Elizabeth's intentions were, and he had to figure that out before he could deal with her. He didn't want to lose Violet while he figured things out, so he needed to be firm with her. Looking at her sternly, he said, I instigated our agreement. The final right to terminate it belongs to me. I will solve Elizabeth's problem. Now can you calm down? I am really tired. He had been waiting for Elizabeth to reveal her intentions, and she'd done so at the absolute worst moment. Logan was exhausted. Today had not been an easy one at the Smith Group, and the days ahead would be even more challenging. He sighed. Logan had hoped to seek comfort in Violet's arms after such a day. But judging by the angry look on Violet's face, it didn't look like that was going to happen anytime soon. Logan had been waiting for Elizabeth to reveal her intentions, but she'd sent her pregnancy text at the absolute worst moment. He had hoped to seek comfort in Violet's arms after a rough day at the Smith Group. But judging by the angry look on Violet's face, that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. Logan was exhausted. Today was not easy at the Smith Group, and the days ahead would be even more challenging. The internal discord growing inside the Smith Group had come to a head, and the old guard, and even some Alexander family members, were questioning Logan's leadership. He had vehemently opposed a current contract with a foreign trading company. Still, some of the older board members and his grandmother insisted it was an excellent opportunity, and they'd vetoed him and signed a contract. Now their trading partner had been charged with fraud and had filed for bankruptcy overseas. The Smith Group would be unable to recover the hundreds of millions of dollars they had already invested with this company. Although this was not a fatal blow to Smith Group, there had been something else brewing in the background that was now coming to a head. Smith Group was the target of a hostile takeover. For the last few months, someone or an unknown group of collaborators had quietly acquired shares of the Smith Group on the open market. The purchases had initially been made incrementally and by a seemingly broad mix of investment groups and individuals. However, it was revealed this week that all of these shares had been sold to the same anonymous group, a group that clearly aimed to take the controlling interest in the Smith Group away from the Alexander family. The Alexander family held the majority share in Smith Group, which gave them the current controlling interest. Since Smith Group had been a family business before it went public, keeping the family's majority had never been an issue. Even if another interested party bought up all the minority shares, they still would be unable to take controlling interest from the Alexanders. However, the family's majority was divided among individual family members. While Logan managed their 51% share and personally held the largest portion, individual family members maintained their rights to sell their shares. None had ever done so, because these relatives had been content to reap the financial benefits while letting Logan's family branch manage the business. However, now it appeared that some family members had grown tired of Logan's management and wanted to line their own pockets with a bigger share of the profits. These relatives had aligned themselves with the anonymous party that now held most of the minority shares. Logan and the remaining Alexander family members were about to lose their controlling interest. If the disgruntled relatives and the outside party aligned, not only would they have control of the company, but they could remove all dissenting board members in a proxy vote. Logan would be out as CEO and out of a job. Logan knew he had many enemies in and outside of the Alexander family. These enemies wanted to see Logan fail, and they knew if he fell, Agnes and the rest of his branch of the family would also fall. His grandmother was beside herself. Logan had told her to trust him and that he would take care of it, but his grandmother still wasn't at ease. There was already internal strife over how to manage the company, and they had had the recent failure overseas that Logan was still trying to control. She knew some would piggyback on the Smith Group's recent losses to tarnish them further. Agnes argued that it hadn't been easy for the Smith Group to reach its current scale. How could Logan think he could fix this? He already knew the likely suspects behind the Smith Group's current troubles. Months ago, when Logan had noticed Garrett and Lionel aligning more and more, he had asked Mike and Corey to keep an eye on them. He was sure they were behind the anonymous group that had bought up so many of the Smith Group shares. They were quite capable of this kind of deception. However, they couldn't do it without the help of some ingrate from inside the Alexander family. Logan was putting his money on that person being his cousin Eugene. Eugene wasn't smart enough to do this on his own, but he would have had the insider access Garrett and Lionel needed to pull this off. Logan had known something was brewing for a long time, and he and Corey had quietly prepared for this day. But now that it was here, he had to tread carefully and not make any mistakes if Logan was going to see their plan to fruition. He looked at the unhappy Violet, who was still glaring at him. Of course, it would be today that Elizabeth would text Logan that she was pregnant, and Violet would torture him over it. Since you have violated our agreement, then I will be the one to terminate the contract. Violet was unafraid to argue with Logan. You said I had this right. I said that you can't terminate the contract unilaterally if I don't agree, Logan corrected her. He just wanted to sleep, but Violet's temper was red hot at the moment, and she wouldn't drop it. Violet sniffed. Since you have a relationship with another woman, don't bother me anymore. Don't you feel disgusted at the idea? I'm not disgusted by you. I'm very satisfied. Logan purposely provoked her. But I'm not satisfied with you, Violet shouted. You are not allowed to be dissatisfied. I am the one who makes the decision. Logan looked at her, and the corner of his mouth tilted into a cruel arc. He looked extremely detestable. Violet wished she could tear off his calm mask and see what this man was really thinking in his heart. Logan was impatient and tired. Don't say any more. Do you want the twins to hear us arguing? The soundproofing in here is excellent, Violet huffed. He actually used the children to try to get her to drop it. Yes, but it's not foolproof. You've made your thoughts clear, and I will consider them. Now go to sleep. Logan felt a little guilty, but he wanted to get some rest so he could deal with the Smith Group and Elizabeth's issues with a clear head. If you're considering things, I will consider things as well. In fact, I think I will reconsider our relationship. Violet knew Logan well enough now that she wouldn't let him bully her or dismiss her feelings. Don't be a brat. Am I not good to you? Is Grandma not good to the children? Logan felt that Violet should be satisfied. He'd already given her so much. He would not let her be so willful if it weren't for the children. Of course, Violet's willingness to stand up to Logan was one of the reasons he was so satisfied with her. He thought about it for a while. Violet had laid down with her back facing Logan. Clearly she was angry and disappointed. After a while, Logan came over, wanting to hold her. When Violet felt his hot body approaching her, it made her tremble. She quickly moved to the far side of the bed. Don't touch me. It was not easy for Violet to harden her heart. God knew how much effort it took for her to resist the desire to let Logan pull her into his arms. Logan was flabbergasted. You're rejecting me? Fine. You're angry, but you'll get over it. I'm not interested in the games of rich people. If you are involved with Elizabeth, then from now on, we will be strangers. Violet sniffed coldly. Are you sure? Logan sneered. Don't forget that we have 2 children together. The children are mine. I took care of them by myself before. I can do it again. Violet wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Logan was simply not human, Violet thought. How could he not understand why she was upset? How could he not understand that he had broken Violet's heart? Violet was extremely hurt by Logan's actions. He insisted he'd never been intimate with Elizabeth in the 4 years they were linked. But then, he'd never flatly denied that anything had happened with Elizabeth recently. As far as Violet was concerned, this was as good as an admission of guilt. Violet would not share Logan with Elizabeth. She had more self-respect than that. Violet turned her back on Logan and, although it had been difficult, rejected him when he had tried to touch her. Logan seemed to think she would get over this quickly, but Violet was not prepared to forgive Logan for hurting her. Despite her best efforts, he'd wormed his way into her heart, and now he'd broken it. And even if they didn't have that kind of relationship, Logan still violated their contract. Violet wouldn't pretend this didn't happen. She had to tell him his behavior was completely unacceptable and that she was prepared to walk away. Violet silently cried herself to sleep. Logan lay on the other side of the bed, but they were miles apart. When Violet woke the following day, she yawned and stretched. She felt happy in the fleeting moments before she fully woke up. And then she remembered the events of the night before. Violet's stomach sank. She looked over and saw that Logan was no longer in bed. She had thought that it would be a sleepless night, but Violet had slept a dreamless sleep. She wondered if that meant she didn't care as much about Logan as she'd thought. The dread in the pit of her stomach made her realize that, no, she actually cared too much. She'd likely been so emotionally exhausted that she couldn't help but fall into a deep sleep. Violet wished she could complain to Adam and Amy. She wanted to tell them that their father, whom they were so proud of, was not a good person. What had happened was clearly Logan's fault, but he'd still made Violet so angry that she'd cried. She knew, though, that she would never say anything to the twins. They loved Logan too much. She would rather suffer silently than damage their feelings for their father. Children needed to believe in their parents. Violet had planned to get up early to spend time with Adam and Amy before Henry took them to their classes. She would not be asking Logan to join them. Violet didn't care what Logan did, as long as it wasn't with her. When she went downstairs, however, Logan had already left. Adam and Amy were eating breakfast with Lee. When they saw Violet coming downstairs, they excitedly waved at her. Violet was depressed and in an awful mood, but smiled back at them, not wanting the children to know anything was amiss. "Mommy, hi! Daddy said that there was something important at his company he has to do, so he had to leave for work real early." Amy drank her milk and looked at Violet, oblivious to her mother's mood. "Yes, Mommy, Daddy is so busy. He left without even eating breakfast. You always say that you have to eat a good breakfast to start the day off right. What if Daddy doesn't have a good day now?" Adam looked quite concerned as he asked her this question. "I hope he has the worst day ever," Violet muttered under her breath so the children wouldn't hear. But aloud she said, "Oh, Daddy is a big boy. He can take care of himself." It was all Violet could do to hide the snideness in her response. She must not have done a very good job, though, because Amy pouted and scolded her mother. "Mommy, you have to be more concerned about Daddy. Daddy said you are busy at work and don't have much time to spend with him." "Did he now?" Violet shook her head as she replied. How could Logan be so shameless? Violet wondered silently. He actually complained about her, like Violet was the one who had done something wrong. Seeing the disgruntled look on Violet's face, Adam quickly tried to defend Logan. "Daddy didn't complain about it, Mommy. Don't be mad at him. He's just sad he can't see you, I bet." Adam looked at her earnestly, defending his father. "Adam, it's sweet you are defending Daddy, but you love Mommy too, right?" Violet was feeling a little bit jealous. Here she was, the one their father had wronged, and they were defending him to her. "Of course not. We love Mommy and Daddy both the most," the children said in unison. Violet smiled at them. She would have to tread these waters carefully. If she broke her agreement with Logan, she couldn't let it hurt the children. She decided to change the subject. Daddy has been busy. Mommy has been busy. Has your great-grandmother also been busy these past few days? Violet couldn't get any information out of Logan about the Smith group. Maybe the children could give her a clue? Amy nodded her head yes, very fast. Yes, great-grandmother is very busy. She looks very tired. She hasn't been able to read us stories before bed. Is she in a good mood? Violet whispered to them. She didn't want Lee to overhear them and report their conversation to Agnes. No, not very good. Amy shook her head no. Not good. Violet became nervous. If even Agnes was upset, didn't that mean that Smith Group's issue was big? What on earth happened? She wondered. Great-grandmother said the beautiful granny, Grandma Joanna, keeps wanting to see us, but great-grandmother doesn't want us to talk to her, Amy added. Joanna? What did Logan's mother have to do with anything? Violet was perplexed. Was Agnes in a bad mood because of Joanna, or because of the problems at Smith Group? Why didn't Agnes want Logan's mother to get to know the twins? Violet wasn't a fan of Joanna's, but she was still the children's grandmother. A few family visits didn't seem like a big deal to Violet. But if Agnes refused to let the children see the woman, there must be a reason. It suddenly flashed through Violet's mind that if Elizabeth were pregnant, her child would be Adam and Amy's half-sibling. Did Joanna know Elizabeth was pregnant? Did Agnes realize she was going to have another great-grandchild? Violet wouldn't put it past Elizabeth to tell the two older women if she thought it might help her finally land Logan. Would Violet be the one organizing awkward visits with estranged family members in the future? Violet felt the knot in her stomach grow heavier at the thought. Trying to shake her dark thoughts, Violet told them, "If you're finished eating, go and brush your teeth. Get your shoes on. It's almost time to leave for your classes. Grab your sports bags, too. I'll have Henry drive Kit and Kat back to great-grandmother's house, so they'll be there when you get home. I will only feel super happy if I can be with Mommy and Daddy every day," Amy pouted. Adam imitated the movements of an adult and rubbed his sister's hair and patted her back. Violet could barely make it out since he was whispering, but Adam was telling Amy not to worry because he thought they might get to live with Daddy and Mommy soon. Violet fought back her tears. She looked at her two treasures. They were the sweetest kids, and they loved each other so much. No matter what happened, they would always have each other. She thought about how Adam and Amy had worked together to come to Los Angeles to find their dad. Only together could her two bold and bright kids make that happen. Violet remembered how Logan told her that the twins had met him at the airport on their first day in Los Angeles. The three of them had even gotten into a fight. Violet couldn't help but sigh. No matter when or where, no matter what the occasion, their three hearts had recognized each other from the very beginning. Their souls had told them what they wouldn't discover was true until much later. The bond between a father and his children was that strong. Would the four of them live together in the future? Violet didn't know. She had hoped deep down inside that it might happen. But now that didn't seem likely. After last night, her agreement with Logan seemed destined to end one way or another. Violet felt wronged. Her grievance with Logan had nothing to do with the children, but they would suffer if they couldn't all live together. Still, Violet would hide her tears. She couldn't let the twins know what had happened. Adam and Amy had put Logan on a pedestal, and Violet wouldn't be the one to knock him off. Violet watched Adam and Amy finish up their breakfasts. It was almost time for them to leave. Violet was devastated by what she'd learned about Elizabeth and Logan the night before, but she had hidden her feelings from the children. She did not want them to think less of their dad. They loved Logan too much, and she didn't want to damage their relationship with the father the children had longed for their whole lives. "Your mom is right. You can't be late for your lessons. Look, Kit and Kat are waiting for you in the car, Lee told the twins as she took them to brush their teeth. Adam and Amy looked out and saw the two dogs sticking their heads out the car window, drooling all over the glass Henry had just painstakingly polished. When they finished, the twins came to say goodbye to Violet. She kissed them and gave them huge hugs, then watched as they got into Henry's car and drove off. Today, Violet would drive herself to the studio. She wanted the freedom of having her car. Violet went back inside to finish her coffee. Although Zoe's breakfast was delicious as usual, Violet could barely choke down a few bites of wheat toast and scrambled eggs. As if sensing her mood, Lee and Zoe left her alone and didn't try to chat with her, for which Violet was grateful. The silence was a little depressing, but no worse than trying to make small talk when she felt the way she did. Deciding she was too upset to eat anymore, Violet gave up and went to get ready for work. At noon, Garrett showed up at her dressing room, asking to take Violet to lunch. Jay was busy in the recording studio and wouldn't be joining them. Priya had already left to meet Drake for lunch. Violet assumed that her assistant knew something about what was happening at Smith Group, but she hadn't said anything to Violet. Priya probably had strict orders from Logan to keep Violet in the dark. Knowing she wouldn't be getting any information out of Priya, Violet wondered if she went to lunch with Garrett, if he might be able to tell her something. Logan, of course, had previously forbidden Violet to be alone with Garrett, but given what had happened last night, Violet wasn't in the mood to take orders from Logan. It was just lunch, so what if Garrett was a man and someone Logan loathed? Violet knew she at least was trustworthy, and Garrett was just a friend. If Logan didn't like it, well, Violet didn't care. Plus, since Priya was already gone, she knew none of the other studio staff members would stop her. Violet would have been fine just going to the studio commissary, but Garrett insisted on going to a restaurant. Rich people were very particular. Although she wasn't poor, Violet always felt a huge gap between her, Garrett, and Logan. Violet hadn't realized yet that based on her looks, career, and current social status, she'd already vaulted to the top of the social hierarchy along with them. When Violet agreed to his invitation, Garrett couldn't help but feel slightly smug. He took her to an upscale restaurant nearby where he knew they'd be seen. Garrett wanted to make sure as many people saw him alone with Violet as possible. Garrett suggested they ask for a private booth in the back of the restaurant. Violet was uncomfortable with the idea, so she told him she wanted to sit up front next to the large picture window because it was such a beautiful day. While Garrett was disappointed they wouldn't be alone, he knew more people would see them by the windows, so he agreed with a smile. Garrett couldn't hide his happiness at being out with Violet, and he didn't want to disguise his feelings, even if Violet didn't accept them. The smile on his face was sincere, and his eyes were full of affection. They ordered and chatted as they ate, uncaring of the prying eyes of others. Violet didn't even notice all the people watching them. Her main focus was getting additional information out of Garrett. She wanted to see if Garrett and Anna's relationship had developed, whether Garrett and Elizabeth were in contact, whether Garrett knew anything about the Smith Group, etc. As it turns out, Violet hadn't been wrong. Not only did Garrett confirm something had happened in the Smith Group, but he also knew what it was. She finally learned that the Smith Group was facing an unprecedented crisis because of a contract Logan had never wanted to sign. The foreign business they signed the contract with had failed, causing an enormous loss of hundreds of millions of dollars to Smith Group. Although Logan hadn't wanted to sign the contract that caused the company's losses, the old guard was using it as an excuse to try to force him out. They said Logan had failed as CEO because he was too distracted by his private life, and that Logan was mismanaging the business and discrediting the company's reputation. Logan had been warding off his detractors, but someone on the outside must have gained insider knowledge of the company's internal discord. Seeing weakness, Smith Group had become the target of a hostile takeover. An anonymous party had been buying up shares of Smith Group, including shares owned by Alexander family members, in an attempt to take over the company and oust Logan. Violet found the whole thing unthinkable. "I can't believe this, Garrett. What a joke. Without Logan, the Smith Group, well, it wouldn't be the Smith Group, would it? I can't believe these people doubt Logan's abilities and leadership. Agnes must be beside herself at the thought of losing the company." Violet shook her head in disbelief. "I know, Violet. As you know, there is no love lost between my brother and me, but even I can't deny his head for business. Seems like internal bad blood to me," Garrett told her sympathetically, and with what he hoped was the right balance of sincerity. No wonder Logan had looked so troubled and disappointed the past few days, Violet thought. He's the one who built Smith Group up to its current level. How can they say he's not qualified to lead it? Even a man as hardened as Logan would find that kind of betrayal difficult to bear. Violet was so caught up in what Garrett told her about Logan and the Smith Group that she was surprised when she looked at her watch and saw an hour had already passed. She needed to get back. As they prepared to return to the studio, Garrett realized his phone was on silent, and he had dozens of missed calls from Anna. Garrett massaged his forehead as if in distress. "I forgot I had made plans to have lunch with Anna today. Look at my memory. It's over. Anna will never forgive me." Violet felt pity for him. It seemed that Garrett was not as heartless as she had imagined, and he appeared to care about Anna. "Just apologize to her," Violet urged him. "You forgot and it was wrong, but Anna is not that unreasonable. She'll forgive you." She knew how much Anna liked Garrett, and Violet liked Anna, so she wanted to help. "I know it's my fault, but I don't know if she'll accept an apology. Plus, my Grandma Sarah loves Anna, and if Anna tells Grandma I stood her up, she'll be furious with me." Garrett tried his best to look contrite for Violet's benefit, but he was lying through his teeth. He knew a smile and a few sweet words, and Anna would forgive him in a heartbeat. "Why don't I try talking to her?" Violet thought maybe she could help explain things to Anna. She figured she bore some responsibility because she'd distracted Garrett with all her questions about Smith Group. Violet was the reason Garrett had missed Anna's calls. Besides, she still wouldn't know what was happening to Logan without Garrett's information, so she figured she owed him a favor. "You'd be willing to talk to her for me, Violet? It would mean a lot to me if you did." Garrett's words snapped Violet out of her thoughts. It was only then that Violet realized Garrett was now holding her hand. Violet thought she could help Garrett explain why he'd missed his lunch with Anna. She figured she bore some responsibility because she distracted Garrett with all her questions about Smith Group, and he'd missed Anna's calls. Violet still wouldn't know the dire straits the Smith Group was in if Garrett hadn't told her. So Violet figured she owed him a favor. "You'd be willing to talk to Anna for me, Violet? It would mean a lot to me if you did." Garrett's words snapped Violet out of her thoughts. It was only then that Violet realized Garrett was now holding her hand. Embarrassed, Violet pulled her hand out of Garrett's, telling him, "It's no big deal." Violet awkwardly fiddled with the napkin in her lap. Although Violet knew Garrett would never try anything in the middle of a busy restaurant, she didn't want anyone to see them and get the wrong idea. If Logan knew Garrett was holding hands with her, he would be furious, even though they were fighting. Now that Garrett had told her the Smith Group was in a precarious situation, Violet didn't want to provoke Logan anymore. Seeing Violet's discomfort, Garrett realized he had overstepped his boundaries. "I'm sorry, Violet. If my brother saw that, he would surely be angry with me. He won't make things difficult for you, right?" It's fine. Logan won't. Forget it. You didn't do it on purpose. Shall we go? Violet quickly said as she rose from her chair to head back to the studio. Violet had promised Garrett she'd call Anna to help explain what had happened. After returning to her dressing room, Violet called Anna several times throughout the afternoon, but her calls went to voicemail. Anna had been thrilled when Garrett had called yesterday and unexpectedly invited her to lunch. This morning, she'd taken the time to get a blowout before work and had chosen her outfit carefully. She'd even told Drake she needed an extra long lunch break because she had an appointment. When noon came and went, and Garrett still hadn't called her, Anna started to worry. Why hadn't he called? They hadn't made specific plans, so she knew she wasn't supposed to meet him somewhere. Anna started to get a bad feeling when 12:30 came and went. She tried his phone a bunch of times, but it went straight to voicemail. Shaking herself, Anna told herself she was being silly. Garrett was a busy man with a demanding job. He probably just got tied up in a meeting and couldn't call. Then, Anna remembered the gift she had given Garrett recently. The Lori Group had released a high-end GPS watch set. They sold the watches in pairs, so the two people wearing them would always know where the other was. Mina had suggested she buy the watches as a gift for Logan's birthday. Originally, Anna had agreed, but then later, she changed her mind. She figured Logan didn't really care where Anna was at all times, but Anna very much cared where Garrett was at any given moment. So instead, she gave Logan an Armani tie and gifted the other watch in the set to Garrett. Grandma Sarah encouraged Garrett to wear it every day, but so far, he hadn't. Anna checked the watch's app often, and the GPS signal always indicated that it was still in the Gardner mansion. She figured it wouldn't hurt to check it now. Maybe Anna would get lucky. Anna opened the app on her phone and saw the watch was active. When Anna saw the red dot moving, she grinned and giggled, then covered her mouth so the others wouldn't hear. Garrett was actually wearing the watch she gave him. Maybe he had worn it today because they were meeting for lunch? Did this mean their relationship would finally advance a step? Anna happily watched the red dot move and realized Garrett wasn't at the Lori Group. He must have gone to an off-site meeting. Where was Garrett heading? Anna was thrilled at the thought of always knowing where Garrett would be now. When the red dot finally stopped, Anna checked the location. Garrett was at an upscale restaurant on Melrose Boulevard. Could he have gone there to make a reservation? Maybe his meeting had gone long and he wanted Anna to meet him there. She quickly called Garrett's phone again, but there was still no answer. The app had a feature where you could zoom in to see the watch's location with real-time satellite footage. Anna happily clicked the link. But as the restaurant's big picture windows came into focus, Anna's heart sank. There, sitting right up front by the windows, were Garrett and Violet. And they were holding hands. The two of them didn't even seem to care who saw them. Anna felt the burn of tears behind her eyes. Looking at them, no one would believe that Violet and Garrett weren't lovers. On the day of Logan and the children's birthday party, Anna felt a little guilty. She had witnessed Joanna and Elizabeth scheming, and Violet's dignified response. Anna had secretly swore that she wouldn't badmouth Violet again. But any guilt Anna had felt was now long gone. Why was Violet not satisfied with Logan? Why did the woman need to pursue Garrett too? Anna quickly called Mina to get her best friend's opinion. Try not to worry about it, Anna. That restaurant is near Jay's music studio. Maybe it's just a work thing, Mina advised her. Her friend was always trying to get Anna to back off from Garrett, so she was unsatisfied with Mina's casual reply. Although Elizabeth was a little devious, Anna knew she wouldn't think the picture was nothing and would analyze Violet's intentions with her. Anna quickly forgot about Elizabeth's scheming and now felt that she was a good person. Then, Anna remembered that something terrible seemed to have happened within the Smith group these past few days. Could it be that Violet had obtained some insider information that Logan was in trouble? Had Violet decided she didn't want to deal with Logan's problems? Had she set her sights on Garrett instead because of this? Anna hadn't thought Violet was the type of person. But now, she wasn't so sure. After the birthday party, Anna believed real feelings were developing between Violet and Logan. She had been rooting for them ever since. Anna adored Adam and Amy and wanted them all to live together as a family. So what was Violet thinking now? She knew Anna liked Garrett, yet she'd still gone out with him. The woman had pretended to care about Anna. In the future, no matter what Violet said, Anna wouldn't believe her. It was all an act. Anna looked at her phone again. The two of them actually held hands. She really didn't know what Logan would think if he saw it. Anna stored the screenshot on her phone. Should she show it to Logan? Anna wasn't sure. She would have to think more about it before deciding. Anna bit her lower lip and fought back the tears. She was no longer in the mood to work. She was too angry and emotional. Claiming she had a headache, Anna left work and went to her mother's house. When she got there, Anna crawled into bed, pulled the covers over her head, and cried until she fell asleep. When Anna woke up several hours later, she saw she had a few missed calls. All the calls were from Violet. Garrett hadn't even tried her once. It was simply unbearable. How could Violet have the nerve to call her? Wasn't she embarrassed by her backbiting? After thinking about it, Anna called Violet to see what she would say. Anna, I've been trying to reach you all afternoon. Violet sounded happy that Anna had called her back. Is there something you need from me? Anna asked her coldly. A little taken aback at her frosty tone, Violet decided Anna must still be angry with Garrett and hadn't accepted his apology. Violet didn't know Garrett hadn't even returned Anna's calls. Violet quickly told her, Garrett already knows that he was wrong and specifically asked me to call to ask you to forgive him. Anna, he made a mistake. Don't be angry with him. Was Violet for real? Anna thought. She was so angry that Anna was about to explode. What is your relationship with him, Violet? Why can't Garrett call me himself? Anna was furious that Garrett still hadn't called her and asked Violet to explain, like his little assistant. And Anna knew what happened when Violet was a man's assistant. Anna spat out, Violet, are you Logan's secretary or Garrett's secretary? Violet was confused. Anna sounded as if she wasn't angry with Garrett, but with Violet. Plus, did Anna think that something was going on between Violet and Garrett? She had become Logan's lover when she was his secretary. By asking if she was now Garrett's secretary, was Anna trying to ask if Violet was now Garrett's lover? I'm not quite sure what you mean, Anna. I'm no one's secretary anymore. I just offered to call you as a favor to Garrett, Violet carefully told her. Anna snorted. Oh, I bet you've offered to do Garrett lots of favors. Tell Garrett I wasn't nearly as angry before you called me. After saying that, Anna hung up. Violet was startled. Anna had hung up on her. She stared at the phone for a long time, mulling over their conversation. Anna clearly had gotten the wrong idea about Violet's intentions. She must have thought Violet called her because she liked Garrett, not because they were friends. Violet called Garrett. She didn't share what Anna had said to her, just that Anna was still unhappy. Garrett, I think you should apologize personally. I called Anna, and I believe she needs to hear that you're sorry, directly from you, Violet told him. Don't worry about it, Violet. I'll talk to Anna. Garrett's voice was lazy. Violet thought Garrett didn't sound concerned enough, so she added, Okay. Well, Anna seemed really angry when I called. She couldn't figure out why it was me calling instead of you. I told her I was just doing you a friendly favor, but that seemed to upset her more. Of course, it was just a friendly favor, Garrett insisted. We're friends, after all. Aren't we, Violet? Or does my brother not allow you to have male friends? Violet frowned. This has nothing to do with Logan. I can decide who my friends are. Garrett laughed softly into the phone. He seemed to be in a good mood. Speaking of your friends, then, I just got off the phone with another friend of yours. Lionel wants to meet up with me to discuss some business matters. You don't need to tell me anything about him. I want nothing to do with Lionel, and he is certainly not my friend, Violet answered testily. Garrett could hear the distaste in Violet's voice. It seemed that she really disliked Lionel. What a waste that Lionel still couldn't get over Violet. It sounded to Garrett like Violet didn't care if she ever saw or spoke to the man again. Still, Garrett had to do his best to agree to Lionel's request. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain it to his ally. Didn't you two used to date years ago? Garrett asked. I heard you were childhood sweethearts. Don't they always say that you never forget your first love? You've never thought about him since you two broke up? No, I haven't, and I don't plan to, Violet stated firmly. I once thought Lionel might be the unknown fiancé Noah has been searching for. I envy the man, whoever he is. I just hope Logan can take it when the man is finally found. Garrett kept his tone light, but he was only half joking. Violet clearly didn't want to talk about this subject anymore. Is there anything else you need right now, Garrett? I need to get back to rehearsal. No, it's fine. Don't work too late. I will see you tomorrow. After hanging up with Violet, Garrett briefly wondered if he should call Anna, but his thoughts quickly returned to Violet. Garrett increasingly felt that Violet had the power to conquer his heart. He admired her beauty, but he realized he also actually liked her. She was gentle and sweet. He wanted Violet not just because it would anger his brother, but because Garrett could see himself with a woman like Violet. But he wouldn't lie. If he took advantage of Logan's current crisis to snatch his woman away, the victory would be 100 times sweeter. Anyway, Garrett knew that Lionel had no hope anymore. His ally couldn't fault him for pursuing Violet himself. He just had to figure out how. Thinking back to their conversation of a moment ago, Garrett wondered if he could somehow exploit Noah's search for Violet's intended fiancé. He sat at his desk for a long time, thinking about his next move. Anna didn't cross Garrett's mind once. Anna felt she had to do something quickly if she was still going to have any chance at a relationship with Garrett. Anna wanted to have a good talk with Violet, but she knew even that wouldn't bring her satisfaction. She had lost her trust in Violet. Even if they talked and reached a conclusion, Anna didn't believe Violet would fulfill her side of any bargain they struck. Maybe Anna should go to Logan. Didn't Violet promise Logan she wouldn't interact with other men? Then why was she going out to lunch with Garrett? Perhaps she should tell Logan and wait for him to take care of it. That night after dinner, Anna drove to the Gardner mansion. She had decided to wait for Garrett to come home so she could talk to him. Anna wanted to ask why he hadn't apologized to her and what Violet had to do with it. Anna wanted to know what Garrett was thinking. Why had he invited her and then ignored her? She didn't want to wait quietly any longer. Grandmother wanted to set her up on blind dates with her friends' grandsons, but Anna had never considered marrying anyone but Garrett. Anna drove up in front of the Gardner residence, but didn't immediately get out, still uncertain if she should have come here tonight. A maid opened the door at that moment and waved to her. Walking down the steps, the maid asked why Anna hadn't come in yet, motioning for her to quickly just do that. Anna got out of her car and walked up the steps, as the maid took Anna's coat, happily chatting with her and asking why she hadn't visited in a while. Anna finally felt a sense of belonging. The Gardner mansion felt more like home to her than the Alexander mansion ever had. Anna heard a voice calling out, "Who is here?" before Joanna appeared. "Oh, look who it is. Little Anna from the Alexander family came to grace us with her presents." Joanna laughed as she eyed her. Anna immediately wanted to turn and leave, but then heard another friendlier voice. "Anna, so good to see you. Come, join us." It was Elizabeth. She smiled at Anna and motioned for her to come sit by her. Anna was surprised to see Elizabeth, but realized she shouldn't have been. Elizabeth and Joanna had grown close. She knew Elizabeth wanted Joanna to help her win her big brother's heart. It appeared Elizabeth would do anything and form an alliance with anyone if it meant landing Logan. Elizabeth might be a little conniving, but at least Elizabeth only had eyes for Logan, Anna thought. She wasn't leading on other men behind her brother's back. In this way, Anna definitely preferred Elizabeth over Violet. Anna pouted a bit. It was very lively at the Gardner residence, but she was not in a good mood. She'd visit for a bit, and hopefully, Garrett would be home soon so they could talk. Grandma Sarah came over to give her a big hug. She and Anna got along well, and Grandma Sarah seemed very fond of her. Joanna didn't like Fiona, but she was ambivalent about Anna. She felt the girl was acting foolishly, chasing after her son, but Garrett didn't seem interested. So Joanna figured she shouldn't worry. She didn't make things difficult for Anna. Joanna just ignored her. Joanna sat back down on the sofa and began texting on her phone. Anna wanted to try to talk to Joanna. It would be great if Anna could form a bond with Garrett's mother, as Elizabeth had. But Anna was afraid Joanna would get annoyed. Luckily, Grandma Sarah pulled Anna over to chat at that moment, so Anna didn't have to worry about making a fool of herself with Joanna. "Sweetheart, it's so good to see you. Come, sit with me. How's the new job at the Smith Group going? I hope the situation over there hasn't been causing you problems," Sarah said to Anna sympathetically. There was a bite to Sarah's sweetness, but Anna didn't pick up on it. She didn't know Sarah Gardner was fishing for intel on Smith Group, so Anna naively took the bait. Grandma Sarah pulled Anna over to the sofa to chat. Sarah and Anna got along well. Anna was quite fond of the older woman and believed Grandma Sarah was equally fond of her. The Gardner matriarch was easy to talk to and had a kind expression. She was the complete opposite of Agnes, who was arrogant and strict. Sarah was quite likable, and Anna felt comfortable in her presence, unlike the pressure to be perfect she always felt around Agnes. "Your big brother Logan must be very busy recently," Sarah said sympathetically. "You have to help Logan if he is not in a good mood. As his sister, you must support him during the Smith Group's current crisis," Sarah advised Anna. "Logan is still all right. He is discussing countermeasures with Corey and the rest of his team, and he seems to have found a solution," Anna told her confidently. "He has a brilliant team around him. I don't think Logan needs my advice, but I'll certainly support him any way I can." Sarah eyed the naive girl next to her. She knew Anna saw her big brother as practically omnipotent, and the girl didn't believe Logan could ever fail at anything. Plus, she was an Alexander. Her family's inherent arrogance was in Anna's blood. Although, unlike Logan or Agnes, Anna had no business sense. The girl wasn't very bright. Anna had no idea Sarah was fishing for information to report to Garrett. Countermeasures. Well, that sounds promising, Sarah offered, encouraging the young woman with her eyes to go on. Yes, I heard Corey talking about it, Anna happily elaborated. It seems they've hired a team to travel overseas to investigate the failure of their partner company. If they find evidence of negligence on the part of the executive team, they can not only file a lawsuit trying to reclaim the lost funds, but perhaps get them criminally charged. They seem to think Smith Group was explicitly targeted, and the contract wasn't signed in good faith. It's almost as if someone purposely wanted to stir up problems inside Smith Group and challenge Logan's authority. Really? Why are there so many horrible people in this world? Sarah shook her head, as if troubled. It's not easy to do business nowadays. When he returns, you must tell Garrett this. Perhaps he can offer some advice. I would hate to see something like this happen to him and the Laurie Group. Sarah seemed very worried. Anna patted the older woman's hand. Don't worry, Grandma Sarah. Garrett is so smart. He would never let something like this happen to the Laurie Group. While she thought her big brother was practically omnipotent, to Anna, Garrett really was a god who could do no wrong. Then you must warn Garrett. If you young people assure me, I'll believe you, Grandma Sarah told Anna. She liked Grandma Sarah and really wanted to be her granddaughter-in-law. Sarah already treated Anna like she was part of the Gardner family. Anna assured her, Of course, I'll talk to Garrett. I want to do everything I can to help my family. Grandmother will suffer a huge blow if something happens to Smith Group, Anna told Sarah. Agnes was a tough lady, but Anna still loved her. Sarah's eyes flashed when Anna mentioned Agnes, but then she quickly covered it with a smile. When Garrett returns, tell him about this latest development. Maybe he can help. But no matter what, don't mention to Logan that you've told Garrett about this. You know how the boys fight. Sarah shook her head, as if Garrett and Logan were still naughty schoolboys. Yes, of course. It will be our secret. Anna nodded obediently. Grandma Sarah was tired, and it was already past 10 o'clock, so she hugged Anna and asked the maid to help her up to bed. Elizabeth just happened to approach them at this time. Joanna was leaving to go out with friends, and Elizabeth was preparing to go home. Sarah didn't like Elizabeth. She could tell the woman was up to something. Sarah didn't even greet her when she'd shown up earlier to see her daughter-in-law. Sarah knew Joanna brought Elizabeth around because she wanted the Kingston woman to marry Logan. Sarah suspected that if that failed, Garrett would be next on Elizabeth's list. Not only did Sarah not want Garrett to be any potential wife's second choice, she had never liked the woman's mother, Miranda. Sarah saw no value in any of the Kingston women. Sarah ignored Elizabeth and headed to bed. But Elizabeth didn't seem concerned. After the older woman left, Elizabeth pulled Anna to sit with her and gossip. Maybe she could get some information about Logan out of Anna. Seeing her eagerness to talk, Anna had an idea. I want to show you something, Elizabeth. Anna pulled up the screenshot she'd taken earlier of Violet and Garrett and placed it in front of Elizabeth to see her reaction. Huh. Well, I see Violet is at it again. I told you that Violet is a man-stealer. Ever since she returned to Los Angeles, all she's done is cause trouble. Do you think she really likes your big brother now? Elizabeth coldly snorted and rolled her eyes in disdain. Elizabeth continued, She's always been like this. Violet has been snatching things from Chloe and me our whole lives. It didn't matter if it was a toy, clothing, or our boyfriends. If we had it, Violet wanted it. Elizabeth shook her head bitterly. Elizabeth didn't hesitate to distort the truth. She would take any chance she could get to smear Violet's name. Anna felt betrayed by Violet, so she naturally believed everything Elizabeth said. Anna wanted to hear Violet was a terrible person. Just as Anna was about to join Elizabeth in disparaging Violet, she noticed the look of loathing and disgust on Elizabeth's face. If Anna expressed her bitterness and jealousy of Violet, would she also look like that? It wasn't a good look. Anna suddenly felt terrible. What was wrong with her? She had already thought about it after Logan's birthday. No matter what Garrett thought of Violet, Anna could not let her jealousy distort her impression of Violet. She knew who Violet was, and should remember who Elizabeth was. Anna suddenly shivered and felt that she was not acting like herself anymore. "Are you cold?" Elizabeth looked at Anna strangely. The temperature in the room was quite warm. It was winter in Los Angeles, but temperatures were so mild in Southern California that it was rarely truly cold. Why had Anna suddenly shivered? Anna seemed suddenly lost in thought. Her feelings for Garrett were obvious. Elizabeth secretly sneered and rolled her eyes. Anna wasn't content to just be an Alexander, but wanted to be a gardener as well. No woman should be that lucky. Elizabeth knew Garrett was attracted to her, and she had to continue to foster that connection. She couldn't worry about Anna's feelings. Elizabeth needed to think like Joanna and keep all her options open. She needed a backup plan if things ultimately didn't work out with Logan. As far as husbands go, Garrett was not a bad second choice. Taking advantage of Anna's momentary distraction, Elizabeth sent the photo of Violet and Garrett to her phone, then deleted the text. Elizabeth then handed the phone back to Anna, which seemed to snap her out of wherever her mind had gone. "Are you going to show this photo to your brother?" Elizabeth asked. "I don't know." Anna still hadn't made up her mind. She didn't want to cause problems between her brother and Violet. But Anna also felt that Logan should know what she had seen. Anna didn't want her brother blindsided. "Then what are you going to do? Just watch her seduce your Garrett?" Elizabeth giggled and teased Anna. She was so innocent. Sure enough, Elizabeth watched the girl's face turned bright red. No wonder Garrett didn't like her. That guy was always in the mood for sex. Elizabeth internally rolled her eyes at the blushing Anna. How did Anna ever expect to land a man like Garrett if the mere mention of seduction turned her face beet red? Garrett was the consummate player. That man was always in the mood for sex. Even if Anna managed to land Garrett somehow, Elizabeth didn't think she'd be able to keep him. The man's eyes would wander before the ink was dry on their marriage certificate. On the other hand, Elizabeth understood men like Garrett because she also loved to play. She smiled secretively. Elizabeth was confident that Garrett would never be bored once she got him in her bed. Garrett was her backup plan if things didn't work out with Logan. Even if Elizabeth did marry Logan, she had no intention of giving up Garrett. Or Lionel, for that matter. She wanted to be Joanna 2.0, with as many admirers as possible supporting her. Elizabeth just hoped that when she conquered Garrett, Anna wouldn't cry and cause her trouble. When Anna was no longer useful, Elizabeth had no intention of offering her comfort or friendship. Unfortunately, the pitiful Anna was not Elizabeth's main competitor for Garrett's affection. It was Violet. How did her slut of a cousin always manage to disrupt her plans? Elizabeth couldn't let Garrett become distracted by Violet. The problem was, Garrett and Violet spent so much time together because of Violet's singing contract. She had to think of a way to disrupt things. Logan was busy with Smith Group's issues, but Elizabeth couldn't imagine he'd be thrilled if he saw that picture of Violet and Garrett. He wouldn't tolerate it. Anna was still sitting, fiddling with her fingers and blushing. Hiding the impatience in her voice with great effort, Elizabeth gently asked Anna, "Do you want me to help you think of a way to deal with Violet?" "No, it's okay. Forget it. I'll keep thinking about it. If I need your help, I'll tell you." Anna looked uncomfortable, and the open eagerness she had shown Elizabeth a few moments ago was gone. Anna slipped her phone with the saved image of Garrett and Violet holding hands back into her pocket and gave Elizabeth a nervous smile. Interesting. Anna seemed to be having second thoughts about asking for Elizabeth's help. Elizabeth internally scoffed. Why would she care if Anna didn't want her help? Clearly, the silly woman didn't have the ruthlessness necessary to battle for what she wanted. If Anna wouldn't use every weapon at her disposal, as far as Elizabeth was concerned, Anna had already lost the battle for Garrett. Elizabeth kept all these thoughts to herself. She just stood up and was about to say goodbye and go home when the sound of a car came from outside. The car stopped out front, and they could hear the car door open and close, and then footsteps approaching. Garrett was home. Anna leapt up and ran excitedly towards the entrance. Elizabeth snorted. "Way to play hard to get, Anna," Elizabeth thought. Clearly, no matter how disappointed and angry Garrett made her, Anna would never stay mad at the man. Anna's feelings were written all over her face. She was full of love and yearning. Anna had stars in her eyes and her heart on her sleeve. Garrett was used to women throwing themselves at him, but he couldn't say it got old. He should have been annoyed with Anna after today, but when he saw her rushing out to welcome him, he couldn't help but smile. Anna annoyed him, but what man wouldn't feel proud to be so blatantly adored? When Garrett spotted Elizabeth standing in the hall watching them, he smiled and nodded. They looked at each other and understood each other. Elizabeth chatted with Garrett as Anna hung on his arm, staring at him. Anna hadn't seemed to notice that after their initial greeting, Garrett's mind was not on Anna anymore. He kept looking at Elizabeth with an ambiguous expression. Elizabeth recognized male interest when she saw it, but with Anna there, it was not the right time to indulge that interest. She didn't want to turn Anna against her by openly flirting with Garrett. Elizabeth wasn't stupid. She might need Anna in the future, so she didn't want to make an enemy out of her. That position should be Violet's. Besides, what man wasn't enticed by an unavailable woman? Men enjoyed the chase, and Elizabeth decided to let Garrett chase her. She pursed her lips and smiled as she chatted with him. From time to time, Elizabeth would even help Anna say a few words to him by including her in their conversation, in a false display of sisterly camaraderie. Elizabeth didn't mention Garrett's lunch with Violet, nor did Anna. Anna didn't bring up Violet because she didn't want Garrett to be angry with her. She wanted to throw a tantrum and act like a spoiled child, but she didn't dare antagonize him. So she instead remained silent, like a dutiful little wife. Watching her, Elizabeth thought it was no surprise that Sarah Gardner liked Anna. She probably relished the thought of Garrett marrying a woman she could control. Elizabeth decided it was time to leave. She was glad she had driven herself and didn't rely on Garrett to find someone to take her home. Wasn't an independent woman like Elizabeth, who did as she pleased, more attractive to a man than a clingy woman like Anna? When she returned home, Elizabeth was in a very good mood. She thought perhaps Garrett would text her later. When she walked inside the Kingston mansion, the house was very quiet. The housekeeper came to take Elizabeth's coat and told her Miranda wasn't home. Elizabeth asked if Lionel was there. The housekeeper said that he had returned home recently and had gone upstairs. Elizabeth quickly ran upstairs before suddenly coming to a halt at the top of the stairs. Ah! Elizabeth silently fumed. She'd forgotten Chloe was home. How was Elizabeth supposed to hook up with Lionel, with Chloe there? With her mother's suite and the staff bathrooms on the first floor, Lionel and Elizabeth had previously had the whole second floor to themselves. Now that Chloe was home, she was ruining everything. Elizabeth hadn't been able to be alone with Lionel since her sister's return. She wished Chloe hadn't been discharged from the hospital. What were they supposed to do now? Get a hotel room where they could be photographed and discovered? Plus, when Elizabeth and Miranda had suggested to Chloe a couple days ago that she take the fall for the fake will, her sister had the nerve to oppose the idea. What did she expect them to do? Elizabeth and Miranda couldn't go to jail. It's not like Chloe would have to serve her time in prison. They'd promised to have her declared crazy and sent to a treatment facility instead. Didn't those places have spas and gourmet chefs along with their padded cells? Miranda and Elizabeth had even assured her they'd get Chloe released when things died down. But no. Her sister hadn't wanted to listen. Chloe now cried all the time and said that Miranda favored Elizabeth and only cared about her youngest daughter. She told Mother that she wished she'd helped her father instead. Her sister had even threatened to reveal everything she had done for Miranda and Elizabeth over the years, even though they both knew she wouldn't. Chloe would be too afraid. Elizabeth found all of Chloe's protests very irritating. She had long forgotten about any sisterly bond between them. Miranda had grown so annoyed that she'd finally left and hadn't come home for 2 days. Elizabeth had no idea where her mother had gone. She just knew Miranda had left her here to convince the blubbering Chloe. As if it even mattered whether Chloe ultimately bought into the idea or not. Elizabeth and Miranda had already decided to let Chloe take the fall. If her sister said anything incriminating, they'd blame it on her unfit mental state and delusions. Realizing that being with Lionel was out of the question tonight, Elizabeth braced herself and went to her sister's room to say hello, since her light was still on. Chloe had calmed down a little, but her eyes were still red from crying. Elizabeth was surprised Lionel wasn't with Chloe, since it was getting late. Lionel was apparently avoiding Chloe too. She secretly hoped it was because of her. "Where's Lionel? I'm surprised he's not here," Elizabeth asked. "That's the way you greet me?" Chloe's words dripped with venom. "Why? Are you here to see me or my fiancé, dear sister?" Chloe glared at her sister suspiciously. Elizabeth had come into her room to say goodnight, but the first thing she had done was ask about Lionel. "Are you here to see me or my fiancé, dear sister?" Chloe asked, her voice dripping with resentment. Elizabeth waved her hand dismissively as she sat in the chair beside her sister's bed. "Chloe, don't be silly. Of course I'm here to see you. Why would I be looking for Lionel? I was just wondering why he wasn't here keeping you company. You are the one I'm concerned about, since you've been unwell. You look a bit better today." Elizabeth smiled. She reached out her hand to try and smooth Chloe's hopelessly messy hair. Chloe compared Elizabeth's bright smile, perfect hair, and stylish outfit to her own sickly appearance, and became even angrier. "Don't patronize me, Elizabeth. I'm still your big sister." "Chloe, what's wrong? Have you not had a good rest today?" Elizabeth asked, blinking her eyes innocently. "How am I supposed to rest when you and Mother are ready to hand me over to the authorities for something I didn't do?" Chloe hissed at her younger sister. Elizabeth pouted. "Chloe, don't be like that. You know there's no other choice. Mommy and I can't go to jail. All you'll have to do is spend some time in a sanitarium. And besides, You know the police and Logan are still investigating what happened at the press conference. If they ever find out the truth, this way, you'll already be considered crazy, and they can just lump that in with your other crimes. It's a win-win for you." "You expect me to believe that, Elizabeth?" Chloe was growing louder as she became more agitated. "Seems to me that you expect me to swoop in and save our family. Again. You see the writing on the wall and are trying to make peace with Violet. You're afraid that if I'm still around when Violet wins her lawsuit, she and Logan will cut off the whole Kingston family, and you'll have nothing." Chloe's words made Elizabeth's face red and angry. She felt unable to continue pretending. Why had Elizabeth never realized how infuriating her sister could be? Did Chloe think she was the only one who had ever done anything for this family? Elizabeth was so mad. She was speechless. "Chloe, how can you say that? Elizabeth loves you. She would never take advantage of you like that." Lionel had appeared out of nowhere. He wore gym shorts and running shoes, and his t-shirt clung to his biceps. His skin glistened with sweat from his workout. But it was Elizabeth who felt herself growing hot. "Lionel, why are you always defending her?" Chloe pouted. "You know I only have you in my heart, my darling." Lionel smiled gently at Chloe. He wiped the sweat off his forehead as he sat on the side of his fiancée's bed. Lionel had been on his way to take a shower when he'd heard the sisters arguing. He could tell Chloe was growing agitated, so he had come to help Elizabeth calm her down. "Lionel, aren't you tired after a long day at the office? I'm surprised to see you working out at this late hour." Elizabeth leaned towards Lionel. "Recently, I felt the need to increase my stamina. I need to make sure I can keep up my energy." Lionel stared at Elizabeth meaningfully. Elizabeth pursed her lips in tacit understanding. She pressed her legs together and cursed Chloe's presence once again. The last time they had been intimate, Lionel had called Elizabeth a hellcat in bed. He'd said if he didn't increase his stamina, he wouldn't be able to keep up long enough to satisfy her. She thought Lionel was joking. She certainly hadn't expected him to start training. The man certainly knew how to please a woman. Despite Lionel's soothing words, Chloe still wasn't happy. He was saying all the right things, trying to make her feel better, but Chloe still couldn't help but feel something wasn't right. On the surface, Lionel seemed very sincere. Of course, Chloe couldn't see the surging undercurrent sizzling between Elizabeth and Lionel. She only sensed that the atmosphere between the two of them had changed. In the past, Elizabeth had never given Lionel a second look, and now it was like her sister couldn't take her eyes off him. Why had Elizabeth's attitude towards Lionel changed so much? Could it be that since their family had to rely on Lionel to run the Kingston group, Elizabeth was just trying to get along with him better? Was Chloe seeing things that weren't there? Was Lionel still loyal to Chloe? Chloe grabbed his head and asked earnestly, "Lionel, you heard Elizabeth and Mother want me to be their scapegoat, right? You don't think I should take the fall for the forged will, do you? I know we are all part of one family, and we all need to help each other. I know Elizabeth and Miranda love you, and would never ask you to do this, unless there was no other choice," Lionel told her. "But I'm afraid, Lionel." Chloe clung to him desperately. "I don't want to go to prison. What if no one believes I'm crazy?" Chloe didn't know how her mother and sister could be so cruel and ask this of her. "And if I get sent to the hospital, what if they can't get me out later? Then when I'm eventually declared sane, I'll have to go to jail." Chloe thought she would rather die than let that happen. "Chloe, I can assure you, they will think you're crazy. And it's not just up to your mother and sister to get you out. Please believe me when I say, I will protect you. Lionel gripped Chloe's hand tightly in his, then grabbed Elizabeth's hand. He gently squeezed Elizabeth's hand in his palm. Elizabeth was shocked, but before she could react, Lionel had already tightly wrapped her hand and Chloe's hand together. You two are sisters, and the people that I will always protect. Chloe, I swear I will do what I say, and save you. Lionel's tone was sincere, and his eyes were fiery. Chloe looked at him and started crying. Have I made you think I don't trust you, Lionel? Oh, you must be very angry with me. You can scold me. Why should I scold you? It's not your fault. As Lionel said this, he took Chloe in his arms. He looked across her shoulder at Elizabeth, who was opposite him. He patted Chloe's back, but his eyes stared hotly into Elizabeth's. Her entire body felt soft and warm under his gaze, and Elizabeth quickly lowered her head. She was afraid that Chloe would notice. This is all Violet's fault. Otherwise our family would never be in this position. Chloe was getting angry again, and she was trembling in Lionel's arms. Lionel lowered his head to cover up the look in his eyes. He didn't seem to be able to tolerate Chloe cursing Violet's name. Lionel had to control himself, or he would give his feelings for Violet away. When Violet returned to Los Angeles, Lionel realized his desire for her had never faded. He felt as if he was going a bit crazy. He didn't want anyone bad-mouthing her, and he definitely didn't want another man touching her. As far as Lionel was concerned, Violet either died or became his woman. Those were the only two possible outcomes that would satisfy him. Lionel frowned. Chloe, you should have told me about your fears. You need to share them so I can help you. If you do this for our family, I will keep you safe. Chloe, don't be like this in the future. Lionel, then you think I should do this? Chloe hated when Lionel was upset with her, and she would agree to anything to make him happy. Your whole family would be very grateful. Lionel smoothed back Chloe's hair as he looked at her. I will fix this situation. Fortunately, I'm on good terms with Garrett, and there are some things I can ask him to help mediate. Otherwise, it will be tough. But don't worry. As long as you do as Elizabeth and your mother say, I will find a way to save you. Otherwise, it's all over. The Kingston group will completely fall into Violet's hands. Are you going to let that happen? Are you going to let Violet win? Elizabeth held her breath. Lionel had just played their trump card. Of course I won't let that happen, Chloe screamed. I will never let Violet win. Elizabeth and Lionel were trying to convince Chloe to take the blame for the forged will. While Chloe was weakening because she wanted to make Lionel happy, even the thought of pleasing her fiancé hadn't completely convinced her. So now, Lionel played his trump card. Chloe, as long as you do as Elizabeth and your mother say, I will find a way to save you. Otherwise, it's all over. The Kingston group will completely fall into Violet's hands. Are you going to let that happen? Are you going to let Violet win? Lionel asked Chloe. Of course I won't let that happen, Chloe screamed. I will never let Violet win. Lionel and Elizabeth both let out breaths they had been holding. Invoking Violet's name had finally been enough to get Chloe to agree. If you do this, Chloe, you ensure that Violet ultimately fails. We all want the same thing, which is to protect the Kingston group, Elizabeth told her. Chloe, you can save us all by taking responsibility for the will. It all depends on you now. Our family's fate and our fate as a couple rests in your hands." Lionel sounded sincere. Chloe suddenly felt the burden on her shoulders. Without her, Violet would destroy the Kingston family. Chloe would do whatever she needed to ensure Violet didn't win. Lionel held Chloe and stroked her hair. He was relieved she had given in. Lionel had planned for so many years for this moment. He would do anything to ensure he'd be the power behind the Kingston group, with Violet by his side. Lionel would use anyone to see his dreams fulfilled. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten involved with Chloe or Elizabeth. Not that Elizabeth wasn't a pleasant diversion. She was, and he planned to keep her around as she had proven herself useful. Plus, it was easy for them to remain lovers, as Elizabeth would never want to marry him. Her goal was to marry Logan, and if that didn't work out, he knew Elizabeth already had her sights set on Garrett. Given what Lionel knew about the current state of Logan's business, it seemed increasingly likely that Elizabeth would need a second choice. Regardless, Lionel believed she would never want to marry him. Lionel didn't have to worry about Elizabeth. Chloe had been his biggest obstacle. Now that she had agreed to take the fall and be sent to a sanitarium, Chloe would be permanently out of Lionel's way. He had promised to help her gain her freedom later, but Lionel knew he'd let Chloe rot in jail before she could come between him and Violet. Is Violet really going to return to the Kingston family? Chloe wanted to gnash her teeth at the thought. Let her return. It's not like we'll be here to welcome her with open arms. We've sold the Kingston mansion, so she will have no home to return to. What a joke. Like she thought we were going to live here with her. Elizabeth snorted coldly. Previously, Elizabeth had wanted Violet to come home so that they could ridicule her and make her life unbearable. Now that Violet was very likely to take her place as the head of the Kingston group, there was no way Elizabeth and Miranda would stick around and watch Violet show off. Although Lionel would relish being near Violet day and night, he knew he couldn't change Miranda and Charles's mind about selling the mansion. The two old birds were locked in a bitter divorce, and each wanted to sell the house and keep the proceeds. There was no room for negotiation. Lionel had thought about offering to buy the Kingston mansion himself, but decided that it would arouse too many suspicions. Chloe and Elizabeth would both question why he'd want to purchase it, and Lionel couldn't exactly tell them he wanted to buy it to live there with Violet. In the end, it didn't matter. The Kingston mansion wasn't cheap, and the winning offer had been well over the asking price. Lionel couldn't have afforded it anyway. Selling the house is good. We will live in the Lawson family home. Elizabeth, you will come live with us, won't you? Chloe asked her sister. She seemed to have forgotten her jealousy of a short time ago. Well, don't forget, Chloe. First, you must go to the sanatorium, Elizabeth reminded her sister. When things are safe, Lionel can bring you back to live in the Lawson mansion. That's fine, Chloe replied. You and Mommy can stay there with Lionel for now. He recently renovated the whole house, so you will both like it if you stay there. Chloe was again in high spirits and no longer felt threatened by her sister's relationship with Lionel. After all, the Kingston family was counting on her now. Chloe was very proud of herself. Finally, it was Chloe's turn to outshine Elizabeth. Moving in with Lionel is probably a good idea. It will be good to get out of here. This house has too many memories of the past. It makes me uncomfortable. I will speak to Mother. Elizabeth was thrilled by Chloe's suggestion. She would have the chance to be alone with Lionel at his house once they hauled Chloe off to the funny farm. Well, let's talk about this later. I'm afraid you won't find my home up to your high standards. I will look for a house. If I don't find something suitable, You can live in the Lawson mansion until I find you something. Lionel didn't like the idea of Chloe or Elizabeth living in the Lawson family home. In his mind, the mistress of the Lawson family should be Violet. The forensic results of Miranda and Noah's wills were complete, and the court resumed today to discuss the outcome. That morning, all the major media outlets in Los Angeles published the picture of Garrett and Violet holding hands while having lunch. Everyone wanted to know what the photo meant. Did Logan know about Violet's new relationship with Garrett? Logan frowned as he stared at the picture of Violet and Garrett on Corey's phone. He was in his office, and Corey had come to show him the photo. Corey stood in front of Logan's desk and said with some sympathy, "You have to think carefully about how your relationship with Violet fits into our overall plan. You can't act rashly." Logan didn't respond. Instead, he just stared at the photo, the creases in his frown deepening, as if he still couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Corey pointed at the picture when his boss still didn't speak for a long time, and gently said, "This might be a chance. If you took this opportunity to cut off your relationship with Violet, no one would question your decision, and it would offer Violet some protection." Logan looked up at his loyal assistant, but still didn't say anything. He knew Corey was right. Logan had to look at the big picture. But he couldn't help how uncomfortable he felt. Logan had reached the point where he couldn't see Violet with other men. She was his. Why were they holding hands? Logan had frequently warned Violet not to have physical contact with other men. Was she not listening because she was mad? Logan had avoided Violet the last few days. He'd been coming home late and leaving early, and Violet had been sleeping in her room. He also hadn't heard from his brother. Garrett hadn't tried to explain the photo to Logan, because he obviously thought the image was self-explanatory. Garrett was pursuing Violet. Logan hadn't released Violet from their agreement, yet she was blatantly challenging him. If Logan nullified their contract, he didn't dare to imagine what Violet would do. So Logan decided to do nothing. Violet still hadn't seen the picture when she arrived for court. She could hear all the whispered chatter behind her in the courtroom galley. But Violet didn't know what they were whispering about. She didn't realize she was the subject of everyone's gossip until Haley asked her what was going on. "So you and Logan are fighting?" Haley asked Violet in a low voice. Violet widened her eyes. She hadn't mentioned her argument with Logan to anyone. "Why are you asking me that?" "Don't pretend you don't know what I mean." Haley raised her eyebrows at her friend. "Look at this." Haley swiped open her phone and turned it around so Violet could see the photo of her and Garrett. Violet's stomach sank when she saw the screen. She closed her eyes in pain. Has Logan seen this? If he had, given the current state of their relationship, this just might be the beginning of the end. Violet's stomach sank when Haley showed her the picture of Garrett and her at lunch. It was all over the internet. Of course, someone had snapped the photo right at that awkward moment when Garrett had taken Violet's hand. What was Logan going to say? Violet hadn't seen or spoken to Logan since the night of their fight over Elizabeth's text. If he hadn't wanted to release her from the contract before, he probably would now. Violet handed Haley's phone back. "It was nothing, just a work lunch. Garrett took my hand to thank me for helping him out with a situation with Anna," Violet explained. Haley was not worried that there was a budding relationship between Garrett and Violet. She was concerned about the public's opinion of Violet, not to mention what Logan would say. "I believe it was just an innocent lunch, but most people think you've broken up with Logan, including probably Logan. These things could make life difficult for you when you take over the Kingston group. Without Logan's protection, some might try to take advantage of you," Haley told her. Violet sat up straighter in her courtroom chair. I survived many years without Logan, and I can do it again if need be. Logan's going to have to trust me. If he doesn't believe it was just lunch, I can't control that. Besides, I still have you and Noah to help me. I want you to resign from Lori Group and come work with me at the Kingston Group. How about I appoint you the executive director? Violet had experienced difficulties in the past 4 years. She wasn't afraid. Haley grinned. You haven't won your lawsuit yet, but you've already started recruiting? I have confidence in you, Violet. You are a born leader. Haley thought about it and believed her friend was right. Logan would hopefully trust Violet and not misread the situation. Violet had been confident when she'd answered Haley, but inside she was worried. She grew more nervous when she saw court was about to be called to order, and Corey wasn't there to observe. Previously, Logan wanted Corey to give him live updates in the courtroom. Why had Logan not sent him today? Was it because of the picture? Elizabeth's baby? Could it be that Logan was disappointed in Violet? Did Logan no longer care what happened to Violet? Violet would have to worry about Logan later, though, because the judge entered and banged her gavel, calling the court to order. The courtroom was packed as the press and the public awaited the results of the forensic examination of Noah and Miranda's wills. While both sides already knew the outcome through their spies, the official results would be made public today for the first time. Everyone wanted to know which side was lying. Miranda glanced over at Violet and wished that she could be angry. In her heart, she understood that Noah had outmaneuvered her. Miranda thought it was all over until Elizabeth and Joanna came up with the idea to blame Chloe and Charles. It had been a hard decision to let Chloe sacrifice herself for their crime, even if it was only temporary. Later on, Miranda would think of a way to get Chloe freed. Miranda found herself in a very sorry state. She had once been the head of the Kingston Group and the family matriarch, and now she would lose not only the Kingston Group, but her place in the family, since Charles was divorcing her. When Dahlia died, Miranda had thought that was the end of her days, of feeling unworthy and inferior. She never expected that it would be Dahlia's daughter who would take her down. This Violet was indeed Dahlia's biological daughter. She was born to cause her unhappiness. After the judge read out the official results in court and the subsequent uproar in the courtroom died down, Miranda didn't wait for her lawyer, but instead shouted out, "They orchestrated this. Mr. Smith knew he had Kenneth's will. Mr. Smith and his client set a trap when he didn't reveal the will in court sooner." Noah tilted his head and smiled at Miranda curiously. "What trap is that you are referring to, Mrs. Kingston? Are you suggesting that by not producing Kenneth Kingston's will at the beginning of our case, you had no choice but to fabricate your own will in its absence? That we somehow forced you to break the law? Or perhaps are you accusing me of creating the fake will myself? I apologize, but I'm not much of a master forger. My secretary says she can't even read my handwritten lunch order." Everyone in the court burst into laughter as they discussed what was happening. They did not expect Miranda, a dignified executive, to resort to such tactics. She was indeed panicking. Then the courtroom fell silent when Violet unexpectedly spoke up. "Miranda, those kinds of accusations require actual evidence. I'm sorry about what has happened in the Kingston family recently, but it has nothing to do with me. I am grandfather's legal heir, so there's no need for me to set any trap to get the Kingston Group. I don't need to resort to the dirty tricks and deeds you revel in when the Kingston Group is mine, by right." Violet spoke softly, but clearly in her and Noah's defense. Haley smiled. Violet was quiet, but when it came to critical moments, she would open her mouth and let people have it. She finally understood what Noah had said to Haley about Violet and Logan's relationship. Noah claimed that while it seemed Logan had the upper hand, you only had to look closer to see that their relationship was one of the equals. While Logan was loudly blustering, Violet's gentle toughness would wear him down until he had fallen under her spell. Logan would find himself trapped before he knew what was happening. And not only could he not break free, he didn't want to break free. The judge deemed the will Noah provided the court to be authentic and the one valid will. Kenneth had written it in black and white by his own hand, and his handwriting in the age of the inks had been verified by an FBI forensic lab. Noah had never been afraid of any examination because he'd known the will was real. He'd watched Kenneth write it himself, after all. As soon as Kenneth had finished, he'd entrusted the will to Noah's care, and that was where it had remained until now. Noah knew he was winning Violet's case. He wasn't concerned about Logan's seeming disinterest or the state of Logan and Violet's relationship impacting the trial's outcome. Haley might be worried about Logan, but Noah wasn't. He had seen with his own eyes how Logan treated Violet. He would never hurt her. Plus, Noah had been secretly contacted and knew that the other Kingston Group board members were willing to support Violet. Previously, they had been afraid to challenge Miranda and Charles, since they seemed to have the support of Logan and the Smith Group. These board members had been sitting back, quietly collecting their dividends. But with Charles and Miranda in trouble, they now supported pushing them out. Violet was the heir appointed by Kenneth Kingston himself. Based on that, they had told Noah they would support her. Noah knew Violet would need all the help she could get when she took control, as winning the lawsuit was just the first step. Lionel and the Kingston family would still be around, trying to cause trouble and stand in her way. If Violet had the support of the majority of the board of directors, that would go a long way in solidifying her place as the head of the Kingston Group. Today was the last day of hearings, and the verdict would come today. No one knew the Kingstons were out of options. Charles knew this as well, and he knew that once the matter of the false will was out, the situation would be hopeless. Miranda would definitely try to push the blame onto him. He'd discussed it with Sylvia and asked for Lionel's advice. Therefore, Charles decided to hide and keep a low profile for a while. He'd found a new place to live, and they'd moved out there last night under cover of darkness. After Sylvia gives birth to his son, Charles would think of a way to deal with Violet. Charles knew his biggest problem right now wasn't his niece, but his soon-to-be ex-wife, Miranda.